Molly. Today we're going to make a bean soup, and I'm going to take a little liberty with this recipe and add some of that ham that I just cooked in my last video. I'll leave a link to that above. And I'm going to use this 13 bean soup mix because more beans is better, and let's get started. So I soaked these beans overnight, and I just have a cup here, and I'm going to drain them. And then the recipe says to put them on the stove, cover in 5 cups of cold water, and then cook them for 3 hours. So we're going to get that going, and Dan's helping me. And here we go. So on the stove, and in goes the water. So when I was reading this recipe, and I will make sure the recipe is available for you down in the video's description box. When I was reading this recipe, I thought it was a little confusing, the instructions, because it didn't quite match up with the ingredients list. So if you watch this video all the way through and then look at the actual recipe, let me know if you think I did this right. So because I'm not sure, I'm kind of guessing as to what I'm supposed to be doing. And so we'll see how this turns out. So I'm straining the beans here because I think it says to add the strained soup. I have no idea. So I'm kind of guessing. In goes my butter. I'm going to saute the onion and onion and celery in there. And I thought I was recording that, but I guess I wasn't. So you just saute those until they're soft. And then you add 2 teaspoons of flour, which I forgot to film myself adding the 2 teaspoons of flour. So you'll just see me adding the water in because it says, I guess that's what the water, see, there it goes. So there is flour in there, but I forgot to film that. So, and then the recipe calls for 4 cups of cold water, and I'm assuming that this is when you add it. I'm not too sure. So I would really like some opinions on whether or not I did this correctly. It calls for just 1/8 of a teaspoon of celery salt, which I love. I love celery salt. And here I am adding the beans. And then I believe it was 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm since I'm adding ham, which is not called for in the recipe, I'm going to really watch how much salt I add. I don't want it to be too salty. And yeah, so hopefully this tastes good. It doesn't look very good, I'm going to be honest. And without the ham, I think this recipe would be pretty bland. So I'm adding just a cup of ham to this. We're going to see how this turns out. I may just have to taste this as is and then make adjustments. So in goes my celery salt, and I'm just going to eyeball it. And you can see my cell phone in the background. I was talking to my mom about ghost stories when I was making this, so I was all excited. It is October after all, and Halloween is coming. So I'm going to let this kind of simmer for a while, and the recipe doesn't specify how long. The beans are tender. We boiled them for 3 hours, so they are tender. And we're just going to see how this turns out. So put the lid back on the pot, and it's been cooking for a little bit. I kind of want to get that ham flavor in there, but yeah, so get the lid back on the pot. It says to serve this with paprika and some grated cheese, and all I have is that kind of cheap Parmesan cheese. So we'll taste this, and then we'll see what we need to add to it, if we need to add anything to make it a little bit better. Okay, sorry everybody. Dan's at work, so I'm taste testing this. I added some sherry, paprika, and some grated cheese. According to the recipe, it said to add those. So we're going to see what this tastes like. I think I put too much sherry in there. It's not bad. It has a little bit more flavor than I thought it would, but I think that's because of the ham, which the recipe did not call for. And I think there's nearly not enough seasoning in this to be honest. 1/8 teaspoon of celery salt is not enough for that much food or soup. So I think this would be really good with any type of like smoked sausage or kielbasa, ham, obviously a good choice. The soup would be extremely bland without any of that stuff added into it. You could put garlic in this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this to a little crock pot. I didn't make very much of this soup because I didn't want a whole ton of it. And I'm going to add some chicken bouillon to it. And I'm going to put a little bit of the sherry in now, kind of see how that tastes. And we're going to have this for dinner because I'm not wasting food with some cornbread. But yeah, it's not bad. It's not the best bean soup I've ever had. Like I said, I think I put way too much sherry in this. But the instructions were kind of confusing. They just weren't written very well, or maybe written for somebody with a better understanding of how to make soup back in the 30s, because this cookbook, the Watkins Cook Book, is from, I think it's from 1930. Yeah, it's copyright 1938. So, and honestly, this is like a 30s bean soup recipe. It really is. So you could add things to it to make this a lot more flavorful. Any sort of seasoning would be an improvement over 1/8 teaspoon of celery salt. Though I do love celery salt, it's just not enough. Even with the ham, it's just not enough. So, yeah, so I'm going to play around with this and I'll let you guys know what I add to it. But I'm definitely going to add some chicken bouillon. It really needs that flavor, and I really like that in soups. So I will see what Dan thinks of it when he gets home tonight. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit. Hey Dan.
Hey, what do you got here? Looks like you made some kind of soup.
Okay, it's just a bean soup, and it's from this cookbook, the Watkins Cook Book. I believe this is from 1938. I can't remember if I already said that. So Dan, I tasted this soup. I followed the recipe as I thought it was written. It was kind of confusing. So it's on its own, the bean soup was very basic. It didn't have a whole lot of flavor. So I added ham and I added chicken stock or chicken bouillon. And then I upped the seasoning that it called for, except for the salt. The cat cannot figure out the cat door. Oh my god, that's annoying. Anyways.
So let me give this stuff a try.
Yeah,
ready?
So let me know what you think.
Dan approved.
Dan doesn't typically like bean soup.
No, this is really good.
But yeah, so on the recipe, oh my god, the cat. The recipe on its own, I think needs improvement, but it's a good base recipe. Dan, can you take this camera? You just come in the house. Our living Halloween decoration is driving me nuts.
Very good.
All right. Sorry everybody about that, but he's beans. Little turd. He's cute. So yeah, so the base recipe is not very flavorful, but you can use it as like a base and then just add whatever you want to it. So I added ham and then chicken bouillon and increased the celery salt. And I think it's really good. And Dan likes it. Dan does like bean soup, so that's a pretty good win in my book.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, so there you go. A side of cornbread or biscuits, and it makes a nice meal. All right, so I'm going to leave a link above to the ham recipe that this ham came from. Link above. There's my finger pointing above. And then if you guys have any questions or comments, just please leave them in the comment section below. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.
Catch you all later.
Hey, bye everybody.